Okay, our lesson today is lesson number 5, and the title of the lesson is The Unfaithful Spies. And as I was preparing for the lesson, I noticed that the title was The Unfaithful Spies. That's who we are going to focus on today, and along with there was also 2 faithful spies. There was a total of 12 spies that spied out the land, and the lesson kind of focuses on the unfaithful spies, but we don't want to forget there was also 2 that were faithful, which was Joshua and Caleb, and but we as we live our Christian life, we want to be the faithful ones. That is the reason why we started our Christian life. God called us. God impressed upon our hearts to make a change. You know, we were so laden down with sin and everything, under so much bondage, and then God delivered us out of that bondage. And you know, the day that we got delivered out of bondage, we said to ourselves, I'd say most of us said to ourselves, if not 100% of us said, I'm never going to go back to this again. You know, and that was our intention. Well, you know, the children of Israel, when they left Egypt and was headed to the Red Sea, boy, we don't want to ever go back to Egypt again. We don't want to ever be under bondage again. And it wasn't but first little child comes, what do they say? Well, we should have just been back in Egypt. Should have died back in Egypt, you know. And you know, and we as Christians we have to look the same way. Don't look back to the mess that we were in and lust after that. But continue on. Because one thing's for sure, if we go back to where we were, there's no one back there that can help us. No one at all that can help us. You know, Satan's back there, and in the life of sin, and he's not interested in us. The only thing he's interested is getting our soul, and then from there you're on your own, more or less. And you know, and that's the same way Pharaoh was. You know, I want the labor that these people can do, but you know, their welfare, well, we can replace them with another one, you know, just get another one's coming up. He's getting close to 15, 20 years old. Just put him in that place, saying, and, you know, just do away with that person, you know. And, you know, and that's kind of the way Satan is. But so when we run into trials and temptations in our Christian life, we do have someone that we can turn to, and someone that is interested in not just our soul, but in us as a people. And so in us as a person also. God is interested in each and every one of us, no matter what we might look like. We may be ugly like me, but God is interested in me. He may be beautiful, you know, but God's still interested in us. Doesn't make any difference what our appearance might look. Doesn't make any difference what color our hair is. Doesn't make any difference if we're fat or skinny. God's interested in us, and so we can be thankful for that, and be blessed by that. The unfaithful spies. Let's go to our memory verse there. If the Lord delight in us, then He will bring us into this land and give it us a land which floweth with milk and honey. And we're going to run into that verse here in a little bit. So I'll just leave that alone then. We have our emphasis there. We have a few vocabulary words there. And then the emphasis. And I'm going to read the junior emphasis. And it starts out about 15 months after Israel left Egypt. They came to Kadesh at the edge of Canaan. From bondage in Egypt to now is a matter of about 15 months. That's what the commentator said that the time was. 15 months, less than 2 years. You know, they crossed the Red Sea, and God delivered them from Egypt's army after they got after them, killed all the people, all the Egyptian army and everything. They traveled a ways and came to a place where the water was bitter, and they started murmuring. Moses got orders from the Lord to take a tree and put it in there. The waters became sweet again. They drank. They were happy for a little while. And then they started complaining about something else. Food, manna. And last week I think we studied about meat. And you know, just one thing after another thing that they complained and murmured. In the amount of 15 months, how many times did they complain and murmur? I don't know. I didn't count them. But you know, it was several times, you know, just in a matter of less than a year and a half, even less than 2 years. And here they complain. Now they're at the brink of what God has promised them. They're here at Kadesh, which is at the edge of Canaan. They know that Canaan is the promised land that God had promised them. How do they know that? Because he said, I'm going to bring you back to the land of your father, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Well, that's where Jacob came from when Joseph was taken down. It was Canaan's where they come from. So they knew that was the land that they were going to possess, and they were at the edge of it. People, it goes on and the emphasis says, people lived in Canaan. There was people living in the land of Canaan. It had been 300 to 400 years since Jacob and Joseph and them had moved down there, and so it was inhabited with other people there. It was to be Israel's home. But how could they take it? God knew how. He had done everything needed by miracle so far. And this was one thing that he could also do, was to be able to give them that land like he had promised. If they would only trust in him. They seen how he destroyed, and I've already mentioned that this morning, how he destroyed the Egyptian army, how he made the water sweet, and how he done various different things in the matter of 15 months. But here they come to this land, and they look over in there and they think, oh yeah, that land really looks good. But we won't know until we get in there, or until we send spies to spy out the land and see what it really is like. So let's start reading there in Numbers 13:1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Send thou men, that they may search the land of Canaan, which I give unto the children of Israel. Of every tribe of their fathers shall ye send a man, every one a ruler among them. God was the one that commanded to send the spies. How many tribes of Israel was there? You know, we always talk about the 12 tribes of Israel. There was 12 of them, one for each of the sons that Jacob had. And so there was 12 tribes. Well, they were to pick out 12 men then. And, you know, I think in our last lesson, there were 70 men chosen to help Moses. And I would say probably these 12, now I don't know that for a fact, but I would say probably most of the 12 that was chosen was probably the leaders of the 70, or the part of the 70 group that that helped Moses. Now, like I said, I don't know that for a fact, but I'm assuming that that's probably some of them was. Okay, he picked one from the tribe of Reuben. He picked one man from the tribe of Simon. He picked one from the tribe of Dan. And you know, each one. Okay, he was born in the tribe of Dan, and we'll pick him then and send him out. And if I remember right, Jacob and Caleb came from the tribe of, I believe, Judah and Ephraim, I believe, is the ones that they came from. But, you know, they were chosen. There was 12 of them, all with good intentions. All 12 of them had good intentions of going into this land and really seeing what it was all about. God commanded to send spies. The Lord told Moses to send spies, one from each tribe, to look at the land. They were to see, number one, the land, see what the land was like. Number two, they were to see what the people was like. And number three, they were to see what the cities were like. And was the land good or bad? Did it have wood on it? What fruit grew there? This was some of the things that they were supposed to spy out. They were to bring back samples of the fruit. Were the people strong or weak? Few or many? Were the cities of tents, or were they strongholds with walls? This was some of the questions that had to be answered. Surely God knew all this. Why would he need to send spies? And the commentator says, he had a reason. He had a reason for it. But this was what they were supposed to check on. You know, as countries spy on other countries, they're not there just to have fun, you know, or to have recreation, but you know, they have a job to do. Well, this is what these men was to do, was to spy out the land, bring back the report. Well, you know, this city's big and it's got a wall around it. The next city, it's not all that big. Maybe it doesn't have a wall on it. So they were to know what was where in that country. And then it comes back, as they went out and spied it and looked it over, they seen many things there. Then our lesson picks up in verse 25. And they returned from searching of the land after 40 days. So they spent 40 days in there spying out the land. And they went and came to Moses and to Aaron and to all the congregation of the children of Israel unto the wilderness of Paran to Kadesh, and brought back word unto them unto all the congregation, and showed them the fruit of the land. And they brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, here's what they were saying: the land through which we have gone to search it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof, and all the people that we saw in it were men of great stature. Big guys, muscular guys, macho people, giants, yes, And there we saw the giants, the son of Acah, which came of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so were in their sight. You know, you think a grasshopper, you know, and we as a we to a grasshopper, we kind of want to kill them most of the time, you know, get them out, because they'll eat up the grass, they'll eat up the vegetables in our gardens and the different things. We want to get rid of them, you know. We don't want to have that. Well, that's what they thought that the giants looked on them as. And the bad thing about it, they looked on the giants as being like little grasshoppers or ants or something like that, you know. They let their eyes get in their way. They were looking at the problem when they should have been focused on God. And you know, we ourselves has to be careful when we meet trials and temptations. Do we see the temptation? Do we see the trial rather than look upon God? That's something we have to really pay attention to. You know, we can sit here in church and say, there's no temptation but what God can overcome. There's no trial. We know that God can overcome any trial, any temptation. But then, when a trial or temptation comes on us, do we still see that as when we seen it in church then? That's another thing. Yeah, we can see that the trial and temptation, God can deliver that person out of a trial, but let's put it on ourselves. God can deliver it for us too. Yes, we may have to go through some suffering. We may have to go through some discomfort, but you know, keep our eyes focused on Jesus, because we know that He can overcome anything. We know that. We know that by head. Do we know it by our hearts? You know, that's another thing. These spies, they couldn't even see it in their head. You know, they have already written off that, oh no, there's no way. Well, let's read the commentary there. I'm going to read the junior. It's not in your quarterly there, but I'm going to read the junior commentary there. The report of the 10 spies. Remember, there was 12. 10 of them brought back an evil report. 2 brought back a good report. So we're going to focus on the 10 here. The report of the 10 spies. The spies searched Canaan for 40 days. That was all 12 of them did, and came back to Kadesh. They brought a giant cluster of grapes carried by 2 men. Can you imagine? Grapes, a cluster of grapes that was so big that 2 guys had to carry it. Man, that'd be some kind of fruit, wouldn't it? You know, they probably poked a pole through it, and one carried right behind the other. You know, carrying that pole. You know, and the grapes was dangling down. Wow, that was some kind of a cluster of grapes. And it says also the pomegranates and the figs were wonderful fruit. The fruit was there. The fruit was there. Well, in our own life, God gives us the fruit each day, you know, and the fruit's there. Do we want to go through what we have to go through to get that fruit? These people let things get in their way. 12 spies had been sent. 10 of the spies told Moses that the people and that the land was good. Let me reread that. 10 of the spies told Moses and the people, okay, the congregation that was the children of Israel, that the land was good. It flowed with milk and honey, it said. Oh yeah, that's a very good land. All 12 of them said that, you know. But what did they do? Some of them let things get in the way. However, they said the people were very big and strong. Okay, that's okay to recognize that that the trial is big and that the trial is strong. It's okay to be that, to see that. Some were even giants. Okay? Trials that come in our life are trials that we can't overcome by ourselves. I'll agree with that. We can't overcome trials by ourselves. We have to put God first. We have to look to God and let Him fight the fight for us then. They made the Israelites look like grasshoppers, is what they said. The cities was large, strong, and walled. They said, they are stronger than we. We cannot take the land. Now, if they'd have stopped with that, they are stronger than we. Okay, they would still be okay. However, they're looking at material things. They're looking at the problem, you know. But still, they're okay. It's what they said next. We cannot take the land. You know, and even at that, they would still be okay if they'd say, we cannot take the land. We have to let God lead to take that land for us. We ourselves cannot take that land, but we have to let God be the leader. We have to let God, we have to follow God. Let God be our general and go about however way He wants us to possess this land. We need to follow just exactly that way. And that's the same way in our life, in our Christian life, is we have to let God lead. Because, you know, He may lead over here and we might want to go this way, thinking that's the right way to go, but God might want to lead over here. Yeah, but there's trouble over there. Yeah, but God sees a path through there that will get us exactly where we need to be, that we can't see. We can only see a few minutes, just a minute or so into the future, and not even that, but we think we can, you know, just like today. Well, I expect we'll close services and we'll go and eat lunch. But, you know, I don't know if I'll be standing here 5 seconds from now, but we kind of plan that away, you know, that what's going to happen. But so therefore, really, we can't see into the future at all. We think we can, but we don't. But God knows exactly what is going to happen. And so here's what they say. And those 10 spies could see, all those 10 spies could see was what they saw with their eyes. They said that they are stronger than we cannot take the land. All those 10 spies could see was what they saw with their eyes. And here's the problem. They did not see God's power, His promises, and His commands. That was what they were missing. We as Christians need not to be blinded by the world. That last statement is one that I was thinking about when I was studying. We as Christians need not to be blinded by the world, by the things that the trials and you might say the fleshly things that comes upon us. God is bigger than flesh. God is bigger. God can overcome any fleshly circumstance that the devil might throw at us. Any dart. God has that shield of faith for us. Like the children studied, I don't know, last year I guess it was, the armor of God. God equips us with the armor to use, and God knows exactly where we need to put it. Whether it's up here, whether it's down here. That shield, He knows exactly where. And if we'll only trust in Him, that's what they had to do. If they would have only trusted in Him, if they would have only seen God's power, God's promises, and God's command. But there was 2 spies, Joshua and Caleb, had faith in God and were ready to take the land immediately. So, you know, everything always seems like comes down to a vote, you know. 12 tribes. Okay, 12 tribes, or the 12 spies of the 12 tribes of Israel. 12 spies is what I'm trying to say. Okay, set them all down, line them all up. How many's ready to go in and possess the land of Canaan? 2 raised their hand, Joshua and Caleb. How many thinks that we cannot go in? Oh, there was 10 that said no, we're scared. We don't see God's promises. Oh no, they didn't say that, but that's what the problem was. We don't see God's power. We don't see God's promises. We don't see God's command. But of course, them 10's not going to say that, you know. When a question like that is brought up, and we don't follow God's will like God wants us to, we're always going to blame it on something, Well, right now's not the time. They can use any kind of excuses, any kind of things conjured up in their mind why they couldn't. But Joshua and Caleb stayed faithful. No, Moses, we can go in there and take it. They were the ones that seen the promises of God, the power of God, and the commands of God. God said that we're going to go in and possess that land. Yes, the people may be big. Yes, the people, but the Egyptian army was big too. But look what God done for us. That was probably the argument that them two was bringing and discussing to Moses and Aaron about whether to go in and possess the land or not. Yes, remember the Egyptian army, but God took care of us. God showed His power, showed His promises, and we followed His commands. And same thing will happen in this, But, God was listening to what the 12 tribes were saying. Let's go into verse 14 then. Or chapter 14, and let's read that. And all the congregation lifted up their voices and cried, and the people wept that night. And all the children of Israel murmured against Moses and against Aaron. And the whole congregation said unto them, to Moses and Aaron, would God that we had died in the land of Egypt, or would God we have died in this wilderness? Here they are complaining to Moses and Aaron again. They followed the majority of what was ruling there at that time. They didn't pay any attention to Joshua and Caleb and what they were saying. The congregation fell in with the other 10. Oh my, how are we going to possess that land? They're giants. The cities are all walled. The people's bad there. The people don't want us in there. Why should we try and invade them? You know why they could invade there? Because God said, that's the land I'm going to give you. And we as Christians, when God shows us that, hey, well, I'm going to open your eyes to this light here. I'm going to show you some light here that you have never seen before. We need to accept it and say, Lord, thank you for showing me this. Whether it's a trial or a temptation, keep our eyes, I can't stress that enough, but keep our eyes focused on God. God's power. What was it that I was mentioning there? God's power, God's promises, and God's commands. If we follow His commands, He will demonstrate His power and His promises. Yes?
Also, don't get too proud. That word proud is in the way to ask God for His help.
That's right.
To Him.
That's
The way, I say right away.
yeah. Not to be proud, to ask God His way. God wants us to come to Him. That is true. And pride can also get in our way as far as we think we can handle it ourselves. And that's another way of proud. But we come before God not proud, like you were mentioning, not to come that way, but to come humbly before God. Yes.
Don't be too proud. That's where pride, sometimes people do. I've had that happen.
Yeah.
I have had that happen.
Right. Right.
And,
God will.
And we have
Yes. We have to overcome the pride, or, we come proudly before God, or be too proud to ask God, and we're going to get a whipping. We're going to get set in our place, and we have to be very careful. Like you said, I appreciate your thought there. But here it is. They heard the report, and the people despaired. When the people heard the words of the 10 spies, they cried. They found fault with Moses and Aaron and wished to have died in Egypt or the wilderness. There was 2 other spies there that they paid no attention whatsoever to. They even talked of getting another leader and going back to Egypt. Didn't they realize what God had done for them so far? But they were ready to give up all that just to go back to Egypt. Just to give themselves up and be slaves again. And when we are traveling down our Christian highway, Christian road, that be the same thing as just giving up everything and saying, there's nothing to this, well, I'm going to go back and serve the devil. Be under bondage again? No, I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that. I want to make heaven my home. I want to continue. I might struggle. I might never be rich. Probably won't be rich. I won't have a lot of fame. I won't be popular. But I've got God.
You don't need that.
Don't need that. We don't need that. All we need is God. And that's as we go through our life's highway, our Christian life, and again I say that we have someone to turn to, someone that is willing to carry us, if it needs to be, carry us through the trials and the temptations to get us to the other side. They even talked of getting another leader and going back to Egypt. This is what you call unbelief. And it was sin. Did they have faith in God? The answer to that, no. Did they believe in Him? The answer is no. Did they respect the Lord's way? Same answer. Did they remember His power and His miracle? Same answer, no, they didn't. How sad. Many would suffer greatly because of their lack of faith. Many would suffer. Let's look at verse 6 there. And Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephthah, I'm not pronouncing that right, but you see it there. Okay, thank you. Which were of them that searched the land, rent their clothes. This is the good spies now. They rent their clothes. They are humbling themselves before God, saying, Lord, I don't know what's got into these people. These 10 spies are against us. These people are against us. They're humbling themselves before God. And they spake unto all the company of the children of Israel, saying, the land which we passed through to search it, it is an exceeding good land. Verse 8, which is our memory verse. If the Lord delight in us, then He will bring us into this land and give it us, a land which floweth with milk and honey. See the faith that these 2 spies had? Yes, they said yes, the land's good. And it floweth with milk and honey. That's what they were focusing on. And they had in the back of their mind, or maybe I shouldn't say in the back of their mind, but in the forefront of their mind, the promise that God had given them. He said, you're going to be able to come in and possess this land. He had promised them. Verse 9, only rebel not ye against the Lord. This is what the two spies were saying. Don't rebel against the Lord. That's good ammunition for us. Let's not rebel against the commandments of the Lord. In order to rebel, there has to be commandments set up. There has to be laws set up for us to rebel. You know, if you got a rebellious child, it's because they don't follow the rules. If you have a rebellious people in a society, it's because they don't want to follow the rules. If we have rebellious people in the church, it's because they don't want to follow the rules that God has set up. Yes.
That's a lot of our trouble today in this world. People don't want to follow the laws and the rules and do the right thing. They want to go the opposite way.
Yep. They don't want to follow the rules and that's the problem we have today. And another thing is respect the leaders. Respect, people that have authority over us, because it'll get us in trouble if we don't. Only rebel not ye against the Lord. And that is one for sure. We do not want to rebel against the Lord. Neither fear ye the people of the land. See, they're seeing more than just the people. They see the people. They know what they're like. They're not going in there blindly and saying, oh, no, these people are little bitty people. And no, they didn't say that. But to God, that's what they had in their minds. Oh, they're little people. God can whip them. God can see us through this. Neither fear ye the people of the land, for they are bread for us. Their defense is departed from them, and the Lord is with us. Fear them not. The Lord is with us. Now, if the Lord's not with us, then we're in a world of hurt. But the Lord's with us. He's already made the promise to us of go in there and possess the land. The Lord was directing all this. That's what Joshua and Caleb saw. Joshua and Caleb were two spies. They rent their clothes to show how sorry they were at the people's action. They were more or less being a go-between the people and God, saying, Lord, I don't know what's got into these people. But I want to humble myself and show you that I trust in you. They have seen the same things the other 10 had seen. They saw the same thing. They saw Jericho in there. It was a walled city. They saw the other cities that were big. They saw the people, the giants. But it's like I said, they had God in the forefront of their mind. However, they remembered what the 10 had forgotten, and that was the Lord. What they saw, the Lord was directing all this. Success depended upon their pleasing the Lord. That's what Joshua and Caleb seen. The people's rebellion was against the Lord, and another thing they saw is their fear was lack of faith. That's what they saw in the other 10 spies and the people that followed the other 10 spies. That's what Joshua and Caleb saw in that. If the Lord, like our memory verse says, if the Lord delight in us, then He will bring us into that land. And the Lord had already promised that. It's a matter of what is our reaction to the Lord when the going gets tough, is what it really amounts to. What would make Him delight in them? The question asked, what would make God delight in the children of Israel? If they believed Him and obeyed Him as Caleb and Joshua believed and obeyed Him. Joshua and Caleb begged the people not to rebel against the Lord. The Lord is with us. Fear them not. Fear not them people out there. Fear not the next trial that comes to us, because we have the Lord. Oh, I don't like going through trials. I don't like going through trials. Count it, there's a verse that says, count it all joy when you fall into divers temptations, or fall into temptation. That's hard to do. It's hard to be joyful. But you know, you can figure if you're having a trial or temptation, it's the devil trying to pull you away from God. And you know, that we can count that as joy. Well, we're still going for the Lord, or else the devil will leave us alone, you know. And so we're yeah, yes. And so, you know, we have that comfort that, okay, I may be having a trial, I may be having a temptation, but the devil's trying to work on me to get me. So I know if I keep my eyes focused on Jesus, he'll see us through. And just about the time that the answer comes, a lot of times when people really give up then. It's just a little bit before the answer comes, or would have come. And so, you know, if we just hang on, keep our eyes focused on Jesus, that's what's most important. Let's go to verse 10 there. But all the congregation bade stones them with stones. In other words, the congregation was getting ready to stone them, was getting ready to kill them, you know. And the glory of the Lord appeared in the tabernacle of the congregation before all the children of Israel. All right, you remember when the cloud moved into the tabernacle, or into the tent, God's tent. You know, when they built the tent, they made it exactly the way God told them to make it. And the cloud moved onto that tent and into that tent. Don't you remember? Moses couldn't even enter in. Moses couldn't even enter in. People couldn't enter in, but Moses couldn't even enter in because of the glory of the Lord was there. He was pleased with them at that time. And now, if they would only realize, you know, the glory of the Lord is still with us. God has commanded us to go in and take this country, and all we can see is the giants. All we can see is it's going to be an uphill battle. It's going to be a trial. It's going to be horrible. But they wasn't focusing on what God had promised them. The glory of the Lord appeared in the tabernacle before all the children of Israel. It meant God was the one to obey. To Moses and Aaron, it meant encouragement. And you know, to Joshua and Caleb, it meant approval. You know, Moses and Aaron didn't go in and spy the land. But you know, when the power of God hovered on there, it was encouragement to them, because they knew that God was answering what they had. And to Joshua and Caleb, they felt no guilt whatsoever, because they had brought back the report that God wanted them to bring back. To the people, it meant stern disapproval and anger from God. The very same thing. It was the same thing. Either brings encouragement, approval, or disapproval and anger from God. The very same thing on that. It's all in how we accept God in the things that we're going through at that time. Rebellion and a sign from God. But the people did rebel. It was great sin. The Lord said to go in, and yet they would not. They even wanted to stone Caleb and Joshua. The Lord saw it all. He showed His glory to them. He wanted them to know He saw it. He wanted them to know that. He wanted to say, he was pleased with Joshua and Caleb, and he would help Moses and Aaron. But he was angry with the 10 spies and the people that followed after the 10 spies. Let's go to verse 29 there. This is God saying, your carcasses shall fall in this wilderness, and all that were numbered of you according to your whole number, from 20 years old and upward, which had murmured against me. In other words, everybody from 20 years old and older is going to die in the wilderness, more or less, is what he's saying here. But let's read a little farther. Doubtless ye shall not come into the land concerning which I swear to them to make you dwell therein, save or except for Caleb the son of, and Sister Trish, Jephthah there, and Joshua the son of Nun. That's the only two that's above 20 years old is going to possess the land. And you know, was there other followers of Joshua and Caleb? I don't know. But this is what it was bringing out. And if there was, God might have took care of them, might have let them come, might have let them see over into it before they died. I know that's how he treated Moses on that. But this is what was said. This is what was recorded. But your little ones, which ye shall said shall be a prey, them will I bring in, and they shall know the land which ye have despised. But as for you, your carcasses, they shall fall in this wilderness. Why is the children going to possess the land? It's because they hadn't reached the age of accountability. They didn't know what was really going on here. They hadn't trusted in God that much, you know, and as they grew up, you know, 20-year-olds, the next year became 21-year-olds, okay? But they were 20 when this was made, so they will not die. They possibly could die from diseases, and if you'll think about it, you know, there was snakes sent out, remember? At one time they murmured, and there were snakes sent out, and a lot of people died because of that, you know, and there was many things that happened that a lot of these that were less than 20 years old also died too, but it was for their actions later on. But, you know, God promised these, okay, I will let you all possess this land here. Punishment and reward. You know, we might think, you know, there's a big wide gap between punishment and reward. Let's read this. The Lord told Moses and Aaron to tell the people what he decided. He would not allow the people to enter Canaan. They would now just wander around for 40 years. And why did he pick 40 years? A year for every day the spies had been in the land. They went in and spied the land for 40 days. And so that's what God said. I will let you wander around here in the wilderness for 40 years then. All above 20 years old would die in the wilderness. Then their children would go into Canaan. Joshua and Caleb would also go in because they believed and obeyed the Lord. How many blessings do we miss because of unbelief? You know, that's a question we have to kind of consider, you know. Unbelief. Unbelief is a sin God does not like. He wants you to believe in Him. We have to believe in Him in order to be saved. You know, that's one requirement. We have to believe in Him in order to be saved. He wants us to continue to believe in Him throughout our whole entire Christian life. You know, I'm 62 years old. I may not live to be 63, but you know, that'll be the completion of my life. And I have to hang on until that last day. And including that last day, there's other people that dies when they're 25 years old. And that's their whole life. There's other people that may be 95 years old. Well, that's their whole life. And how they put their trust in God throughout their whole life, throughout the time that they get saved to the time that they die, that's their Christian life then. And you know, we have to, you know, you remember when God, or when Jesus said that the people working his vineyard, some of them went early in the morning, you know, worked all day, you know. Well, he still needed workers. Late in the day, he still needed workers. And he called, he says, go find me some other workers. Now, these people that had been there all day agreed on a certain price of what they were going to be paid, you know. And then later in the day, late in the day, he told them, go out there and find me some more workers. They found workers, and these workers only worked 1 hour. Well, they got the same price, that same pay that the other ones agreed with, you know, and they got paid first even. So they paid them. Well, when the others, they was expecting to get more. No, you agreed on that price, you know. And you know, they missed out on the work earlier. And you know, they didn't get to see some of the things that other people seen. And God is fair. No matter, we as people look at how things is run in a country and all, and we'll think, oh, you know, that's so unfair the way things are run. But you know, God runs things fair. There's nothing unfair about God, and God will see that we get our just reward as we live our Christian life there. I like to look at this points to consider: majority or minority. Everyone does it. Have you ever heard that before? You know, I know I've even said this before.
Just like when we're in school and everything, you know, don't come home, you know, and parents say, don't do this, don't do that.
Yep. Everybody does it. Yeah. We know it's wrong, but the excuse we use, well, everybody does it, you know, like that's supposed to gloss it over. Everybody does it. I've used that before when I was. We have to watch that. Does that make it right? That's the question. No. 50,000 Frenchmen can't be wrong. Okay, I've heard something kind of like that, you know. Well, yeah, 50,000 Frenchmen can be wrong if it's wrong. If it's going against God's will, I don't care if it's a 500,000 Frenchmen, they'd be wrong. Oh, can't they? That's the answer. Oh, can't they? 600,000 Israelites were, I said 6,000, 600,000. You know, there were 600,000 people, you know, in the Israelites. 10 comes back with a bad report. 10 spies come back with a bad report. These 600,000 people, looks like the majority of them followed after those 10 spies, you know. And who was right? The 2 that brought back the good report. Minority, very much in a minority, wasn't they? It seldom pays to follow the crowd in matters of right and wrong. And you know that is true. You know, here we are, very few in number here. But you know, we're doing what God wants us to do. There's a multitude of people that's within a half mile of this church. If everybody did what they were supposed to, within a half mile of this church, we could fill this church 10 times probably, or close to it, you know. But what do we got? Just a few. Here we are. Don't get discouraged. Keep doing what we're doing. Keep our focus on Jesus. It's seldom, I'm going to read this again. It seldom pays to follow the crowd in matters of right and wrong. Popular opinion, the trend of the times, general custom, what has been believed for years, what our church teaches. Are these safe guides? Not always. And, even what the church teaches, even what the church follows, we have to examine and say, Lord, I know this is what the church teaches, and you know, if you show me something different, then it has to be from you. It has to be from you before I will give up what needs to be done. Popular opinions. You know, a lot of times popular opinions, you can see all kinds of opinions out there. People has opinions. I don't care what you could bring up. People's got an opinion on it most of the time, you know. And they will express it. But you know, we as Christians need to look to God and say, God, what's your opinion? That's the opinion I want to follow. Is, Lord, what is your opinion on the matter? What's the trend of the times? Lord, your trend has been forever, and I want to follow your trend. General customs, you know, I want to follow what you have for me, and what has been believed for years. Lord, if that's still right, if that's what you want me to follow, then that's what I want to follow then. And so we have to use Canaan. We have to use the children of Israel as a type of our Christian life. There's typical meanings, which is 1, 2, about 3 more down. I want to read that. Canaan is a type of the Spirit-filled life. Now, this was the land that they were getting ready to possess. It's a comparison to the Spirit-filled life. It's Christian life. That was number 1. And the number 2 is the giants and the walled cities are a type of obstacles to victory in Christ. You know, we are going to meet up with obstacles. We're going to meet up with trials and temptation. And that's what that's talking about. Going into the land is a type of consecration and faith for Holy Spirit baptism. And you know, we've always used that as the going into the land is a type of consecrating ourselves for God, setting aside ourselves for His purpose. And then number 4 was choosing a new captain to return to Egypt is a type of returning to sin, returning to Satan, and returning to sin. And that's what they wanted to. But let's not us get into that rut there. Death in the wilderness is a type of spiritual defeat in destruction, and so that's another type there. And then belated attempt to enter the land is a type of trying in one's own fleshly strength to live the Christian life, which is impossible. We have to have God be our leader. And you know, that's what they tried to do then after God told them, says, okay, everybody 20 and older is going to die in the wilderness. What does the children of Israel decide to do? Well, let's go in and possess the land then. No, you don't have God anymore. God has done left the scene. You're on your own. And what happened? They go in there and try to possess it, and they get literally whipped, you know. And so that's the type of that they were bringing out there. And Caleb and Joshua's following of the Lord is a type of living in the Spirit, obeying His leading. Let's be a Joshua and a Caleb. Let's do that. Keep Christ, keep God in the forefront of our life. And it goes on and says, this is the only way to live the Christian life. Keeping Christ, keeping focused on Christ, keeping focused on the things of God. God will see us through. God is interested in each one of us, and God will see us through. Okay, we'll close at that.